What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I got a 2020 BMW 330i with the 2.0 turbo, and this car got a coolant leak from the oil filter housing. So in this video we're going to go ahead and take care of that, and I'm going to show you how to do this filter housing without removing the intake manifold. So let's get started. Alright, so this car has been parked here overnight, and this is how much coolant came out of it. So before we get started, I want to cover a few points. So the oil filter housing, it has foam underneath it, and this cover right here is a material that would absorb any kind of liquid. So sometimes if the leak is not severe like this and it's very small, most of the time the foam up there and this, they absorb it, and you have the covers on too, so you might not see it on the floor. So if you're leaking a little coolant every now and then and you can't see where it's coming from, this is definitely a place to look at. Alright, another point is, on some models, this one doesn't have it, but there's some models have an upper radiator hose that connects to the block with a flange, and that flange leaks all the time, and that flange is right on top of the oil filter housing. So if it leaks, it comes down just like you would see here, and it'll look like the oil filter housing is leaking, but in all reality it's just the flange. So usually what I do is, on those particular models, when I do change the oil filter housing, I always make sure I change the flange with it. Alright, first thing first, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery. And for the trunk, I'm going to put another piece of cloth right here, just so the trunk doesn't lock us out of reaching the battery when we're done. Alright, we're going to go ahead and drain the oil next. The plug is 17 millimeter. Alright, so I got the drain plug with a new washer. We're going to put this back on. Alright, so we're going to start off with taking out the beauty covers, and then we're going to go ahead and clear this area. Basically, just going to remove everything from here. Alright, so once you have this area cleared out, you gotta be careful from this hose right here. This hose, this is the overflow hose for the expansion tank. Be very careful from this. It's notorious to break. It's a plastic line. So other than that, you got the upper radiator hose that needs to come out. We're gonna pull it out from here, set this aside. You got a heater hose down here and another hose right here. So we're gonna get those out, and then after that you got a bracket that's right here. It's a E-Torx. I'll tell you which E-Torx it is when I get to it. And then you got another one down there. So we're gonna get this bar basically out to make more room. Alright, so I got the hoses out, the upper radiator hose out, and the heater hose out for now. This one is harder to remove, so I'm gonna see what I can do about this after I remove the bar. Maybe I'll have a little more room. But I tugged in the radiator hoses right there, and the heater hose is just sitting right there. So now I'm gonna remove this out. This is a E10, and then we're gonna raise the car and work underneath. Alright, so underneath the car, the bottom bolt for that long bracket is a E8. Alright, so up next, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the cap of the oil filter housing, and then I'm gonna free up all these wires. Alright, one last thing to do, which I already did. There's this little C-clamp kind of bracket that just hugs the oil filter housing, and it connects to the pipe and this hose right here. So I haven't removed the hose. I think I'm gonna leave it alone. So I just popped it from right there where that C-shaped clamp is, and we're pretty much ready to start taking the bolts off. So we're gonna start from underneath. Alright, since we removed that bracket, our bolts down here are pretty visible and accessible. So I'm gonna work from this area. All the bolts are E10 bolts. And since I don't have a way of mounting the camera over here, I'll bring you guys back when I remove them out. Alright, and what I'm going to be using to take out the bolts is a wobble extension with a small 3/8 ratchet. Alright, so we got 3 bolts from underneath. We have 2 more up here. And for this one, you're going to need a little longer extension. Alright, so we're pretty much loose, but I forgot to take out the 13mm for the alternator wire. So I'm gonna get that out and then we'll pull it out. All right, so we got the alternator wire loose and the AC compressor unplugged. I think the bottom one is not completely out. All right, here we go. God damn it. There we go. All right, all seals are completely shot, but this one is separated from each other. See right there? But anyways, here we go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill up with oil, and this car takes about 5.5 quarts of oil. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put about 4.8 quarts in there. We're gonna prime the system, and then after I install the oil filter housing, I'm gonna add rest of the 5.5 into the oil filter housing. Alright, at this point we have oil in the system and we're pretty much ready to prime the system before we put the oil filter housing back in. And the way you're going to prime the system is we're going to turn the crank until we see oil coming out of this port right here. So this car needs a special tool to turn the crank, and the crank has covers, plastic covers right here, so they're all held by a bunch of clips. We're gonna get this stuff out and then put the tool in with an extension that's gonna come out to about here, so we don't have to remove none of this. Then we'll turn it from right here, and I'll show you what the tool looks like. Alright, so I can't find my crank tool, so I think I let somebody borrow it and I never got it back. So what we're gonna use to turn the engine is the starter. So we're gonna tap into the starter and turn the motor this way. Alright, since we have no power in the car and the battery has been disconnected, the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna feed this wire from here down there. I'm gonna remove the main wire from the starter. I'm gonna connect this. We're gonna unplug the starter from the small plug. We're gonna connect this, and then this we're gonna use an external power to basically turn the starter. Alright, so we got our starter wire right here, and it's held by a 13mm. We're gonna take this out completely, and by the way, this is not touching anything else, it's not supplying anything else, so we won't be giving power to nothing, plus we're completely disconnecting it. Put this here. Alright, and then we're gonna take this out and I'm gonna tap into this. Alright, set it right here and then we'll go up and then do the rest from the top. Alright, so this is pretty much what our setup is gonna be. The fat wire is going to the main power to the starter. The small wire is going to the plug to the starter. I got a jumper right here. I'm gonna ground it to the car. Okay, and this is gonna get power from here. So I'm gonna be using a push button to control this, but if you don't have a push button at home, you don't have to have one. This is just for control and me standing over there. So if you don't have a push control, all you do is if you just touch this wire that goes to the plug to the starter, if you just touch this, it'll turn the motor. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and set up my push button. And now basically just this controls it. Alright, so we just made a mess right here. Those few starts were actually enough to prime it, so we're pretty much set. I'm gonna clean up this area and start installing. Alright, so I have the area clean. We're ready to go. Here's the part number for the original part. And this part comes complete with the cooler, so we don't have to do much. Alright, let's put this back in there. Alright, so we're pretty much ready to go in, and we're gonna go in exactly the way we came out, and we're gonna go ahead and get these two bolts in and then get the rest from underneath. Alright, so at this point we have everything just hand tight, and we're pretty much ready to go ahead and torque them down. We're going to torque them down to 10 newtons, and BMW has a sequence that wants us to follow when we're torquing them down. So I'll post the sequence up right now. Alright, so I got my torque wrench set up at 10 newtons. So we're going to do one bolt from up here, raise the car up, do 3 underneath, and then come back to the last one on top again. Alright, one last bolt left at the top. Alright, so now I'm gonna go ahead and put this bracket back on. I'm gonna put all the hoses back on, and I'm gonna go ahead and fill up the system and pressure test it before I go any further. Alright, so this car had green coolant in it before, so that's what we're gonna put in it. Alright, so we got 15 pounds of pressure in it, and we're gonna just let it sit for like 15 minutes. Alright, so 15 minutes later, our pressure is still good. So we're pretty much ready to put this back together. I'm gonna start off with the intake bracket and then get all the wiring and the alternator. After we put it all back together, we'll go over the bleeding procedures. Alright, so at this point I have the alternator back on, the AC compressor, wire is back on. I have all the wires tugged in and clipped back in. Up here I got the bracket for the intake manifold back on too. We're pretty much gonna put everything back together. I'm not gonna bore you with the footage, so we'll come back when everything is back together and we're ready to bleed the system. Alright, we pretty much have everything back together. Before I start bleeding the cooling systems, which we're gonna do both, the high temp and the low temp, I'm gonna go ahead and take the oil filter housing cap off, and I'm gonna add the rest of the oil into that, which was about a half a quart. Alright, so at this point we're gonna tap off the coolants all the way up, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put the battery back on the car. Alright, so we're pretty much ready to bleed the system, and we have two cooling systems on this car, the high temp and the low temp, and they're both going to take about 11 minutes. So if you have a weak battery, I would suggest you put a battery tender on the battery just to keep them going so it doesn't get interrupted. So the way the low beam is going to work is we're going to press the start stop button 3 times, and to keep the car in on mode, we're gonna turn on the headlights and the hazard lights at the same time. So this will keep the car from turning off. We're gonna put the heat all the way up, and then we're gonna put the fan all the way down. So the temperature has to be all the way up on both sides. And then we're going to press and hold the acceleration pedal for 10 seconds. And then you'll start hearing the pump go. And then right here, it'll say the car is in the service function mode. Alright, so after we're done with the low pressure, we're going to close everything off and start bleeding the high pressure. Alright, so we're all set here. So now I'm just going to let the car cool down, and then I'm going to top off both cooling systems. So this pretty much sums up our video. If you found this helpful, please hit the like and the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Peace.